something. Have you ever wondered why the most powerful people often vanish just when the world expects them to dominate forever? One day they are everywhere. Their names echo through every conversation. Their influence shapes decisions, controls rooms, and changes destinies. Something. Then, without warning, they disappear. No dramatic farewell, no public defeat, just silence. People assume they lost. They assume they became weak. They assume someone replaced them. But what if their disappearance wasn't failure? Something. What if disappearing is the oldest strategy of power? Because the greatest mistake ordinary people make is believing power comes from being seen. The truth is far more dangerous. Visibility attracts admiration, but it also attracts envy, resistance, and attack. The people who understand human nature know something most never learn. Sometimes the strongest move is not stepping forward. Sometimes it is stepping away. And those who master that lesson often return stronger than anyone imagined. Power seduces people into believing they must always be present. The moment success arrives, they feel compelled to protect their image. They attend every meeting, answer every criticism, respond to every challenge, and prove themselves again and again. Without realizing it, they become prisoners of their own reputation. The crowd applauds visibility, but history quietly rewards restraint. Human nature is strange. The more often people see you, the more ordinary you become. Familiarity slowly erodes mystery. Mystery is one of the foundations of influence because people naturally assign greater value to what they cannot fully understand. When every thought, every opinion, every emotion is constantly displayed, people stop wondering about you. Once curiosity disappears, influence begins to fade. Many powerful individuals understand this long before anyone else notices. They recognize the invisible cost of constant exposure. Every appearance creates expectations. Every statement creates enemies. Every success inspires jealousy. Eventually, remaining visible becomes more dangerous than becoming absent. This is why some disappear. Not because they are defeated, because they are protecting something far more valuable than public attention. They are protecting their freedom. Most people spend their lives chasing recognition without realizing recognition creates obligations. Once the world labels you successful, it demands that you remain successful forever. One mistake becomes front page news. One moment of weakness becomes everyone's entertainment. The higher you climb, the smaller your margin for error becomes. Power is not only about reaching the top, it is about surviving there. Many never survive because they confuse movement with progress. They believe every battle deserves their attention. Every insult deserves a response. Every opportunity must be accepted. But every unnecessary conflict drains energy. Every meaningless victory costs time. Every public argument feeds opponents who desperately want your attention. Wise people understand something few ever accept. Attention is expensive. Spend it carelessly, and you become exhausted long before your enemies do. Sometimes disappearing is simply refusing to waste your energy on battles that produce no lasting reward. Silence often unsettles people more than explanation. Notice what happens when someone suddenly stops responding. The people who ignored them begin searching for them. The people who criticized them begin wondering what they are planning. The people who envied them become uncomfortable because uncertainty creates anxiety. Human beings fear what they cannot predict. Predictable people are easy to control. Unpredictable people become impossible to manipulate. Disappearance creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates psychological space. Inside that space, imagination begins doing work that reality never could. People invent stories. Some imagine failure. Others imagine hidden success. Some fear revenge. Others anticipate greatness. Ironically, absence often makes a person larger in people's minds than constant presence ever could. This is one reason legends rarely explain themselves. They allow silence to become part of their identity. There is another reason powerful people disappear, and it is far more personal. Success attracts people who never cared about your struggles. something. Once influence grows, so does imitation. People copy your language, your habits, your ideas, even your personality. At first, imitation feels flattering. Eventually, it becomes suffocating. Something. You begin living according to other people's expectations instead of your own purpose. Without noticing, your identity slowly disappears long before your public image does. Real strength requires periods of isolation, not because you hate people, something. Because noise slowly disconnects you from your own thinking. Every meaningful decision demands clarity. Clarity rarely exists inside constant applause. Sometimes the loudest room is the most dangerous place to build your future. Isolation restores perspective. Something. Distance reveals hidden motives. Silence exposes uncomfortable truths. Many people avoid being alone because they fear meeting themselves. Yet every great transformation begins exactly there, behind closed doors, away from approval, away from competition. Something. Away from endless comparison. Growth often looks invisible before it becomes undeniable. Nature itself teaches this lesson. Seeds disappear beneath the soil before forests appear above the ground. No one applauds roots, everyone admires trees. Something. The invisible stage always comes before visible success. Those obsessed with appearances rarely understand this process. They announce every goal, celebrate every small achievement, broadcast every plan before it has matured. In doing so, they invite unnecessary judgment, distraction, and pressure. Key builders move differently. They allow results to speak after preparation is complete. They understand that unfinished work needs protection. Dreams exposed too early often die from outside opinions. Not every chapter of your life belongs to public discussion. Some chapters require complete privacy. The world often mistakes privacy for weakness because it cannot measure invisible progress. But the strongest foundations are always hidden underground. Power also demands knowing when to leave. Most people stay too long. They remain in relationships that have become empty. They remain inside careers that no longer challenge them. They remain surrounded by people who secretly celebrate their decline. Why? Because leaving feels like surrender, but staying somewhere that no longer serves your growth is a much greater defeat. Sometimes disappearing is not running away. It is refusing to decay. There comes a moment when your next level cannot be reached by adding more. It can only be reached by letting go of noise, letting go of unnecessary approval, letting go of endless explanation, letting go of people committed to misunderstanding you. Every powerful transformation requires sacrifice. Not everyone deserves access to every version of you. As you evolve, some doors must quietly close, not with hatred, not with revenge, simply with acceptance. The strongest people do not announce every departure. They simply stop arriving. One day the world notices their absence. Months later it notices their growth. Years later it calls them extraordinary. But almost no one witnessed the invisible season that made that transformation possible. The truth is, disappearing is not about escaping life. It is about escaping distraction. It is choosing purpose over popularity, dip over attention, wisdom over applause. Because in the end, power is never measured by how loudly your name is spoken. It is measured by how completely you control your own direction. Even when no one is watching, the people who disappear with intention are often the same people who return with a strength the world never saw being built. And perhaps the greatest form of power is reaching a place where you no longer need constant recognition to know exactly who you are. Most people grow up believing that power is measured by visibility. They assume the more people know your name, the more influence you possess. Social media reinforces this illusion every single day. The loudest voices seem to receive the most attention, and attention is often mistaken for importance. We begin to think that staying in front of everyone's eyes is the only way to remain relevant. We chase recognition, we celebrate exposure, and we fear being forgotten. Yet history tells a very different story. Many individuals who held extraordinary influence understood that being seen all the time was not a sign of strength but a source of vulnerability. Vivisection is attractive because it satisfies a deep human desire to be acknowledged. Every compliment, every applause, and every expression of admiration gives the mind a temporary feeling of security, but that feeling can become addictive. Once someone becomes accustomed to constant attention, they begin making decisions not to protect their purpose, but to protect their image. They stop asking what is necessary and start asking what will keep people watching. Slowly, without realizing it, they surrender control of their own direction to the expectations of others. The more visible you become, the more opinions you invite. Every achievement earns admiration from some people and resentment from others. Success has a strange way of exposing hidden emotions in those around you. Some celebrate your progress because it inspires them. Others secretly hope to witness your downfall because your success reminds them of what they have not accomplished. As your influence grows, so does the number of people watching for mistakes. Small errors become large discussions. Minor weaknesses become public entertainment. The spotlight that once felt warm begins to feel like relentless pressure. Human psychology has always been fascinated by novelty. What appears extraordinary today often becomes ordinary tomorrow through repetition. Something seen every day gradually loses its ability to surprise. The same principle applies to people. Constant exposure slowly reduces the mystery that once surrounded them. When every opinion is shared immediately, every move is documented, and every thought is revealed, there is little left for others to wonder about. Curiosity fades, and with it, much of the quiet influence that mystery naturally creates. This does not mean someone should hide out of fear or avoid meaningful contribution. It means understanding that value is not increased simply because something is constantly available. Rare things are often appreciated because they are not endlessly accessible. Consider how people remember conversations with someone who speaks thoughtfully instead of endlessly. Their words carry more weight because they are chosen carefully rather than offered without restraint. Influence grows stronger when it is guided by intention instead of impulse. Many people confuse activity with effectiveness. They believe they must respond to every criticism, defend every decision, and prove themselves in every disagreement. Yet every unnecessary response consumes time, emotional energy, and mental focus. Those resources are limited. Every hour spent explaining yourself to people determined to misunderstand you is an hour stolen from building something meaningful. Every emotional reaction strengthens the influence of those seeking to distract you. The strongest individuals recognize that not every challenge deserves an answer. They understand that silence is sometimes more powerful than argument because silence denies conflict the attention it requires to survive. While others become exhausted trying to win every debate, they preserve their energy for goals that truly matter. Their restraint is often mistaken for weakness by those who cannot imagine choosing peace over proving a point. In reality, restraint frequently requires far greater discipline than constant reaction. There is another hidden danger with invisibility. The more people admire you, the greater the temptation to become the person they expect instead of the person you truly are. Approval feels rewarding, but it can quietly become a prison. You begin repeating the same ideas because people applaud them. You avoid taking necessary risks because they might disappoint your audience. Instead of growing, you become trapped maintaining an image that no longer reflects your evolving purpose. Your public identity becomes stronger while your authentic self slowly fades into the background. True influence demands the courage to disappoint expectations when necessary. It requires making decisions based on long-term purpose rather than immediate applause. This is impossible if your greatest priority is remaining constantly visible. There comes a point where protecting your integrity matters far more than protecting your popularity. Those who understand this are willing to step away from unnecessary attention so they can continue growing without the constant pressure of public approval. The world often rewards confidence, but it also tests it relentlessly. If your confidence depends entirely on recognition, then recognition controls you. Every compliment lifts your spirit, and every criticism shakes your foundation. Real confidence is different. It is built quietly through discipline, reflection, and repeated action. It does not disappear simply because fewer people are watching. In fact, some of the most meaningful progress happens when there is no audience at all. Growth has always required periods of invisibility. Skills are developed in practice before they are displayed in performance. Wisdom is formed through reflection before it appears in conversation. Strength is built through countless unseen moments of persistence before anyone notices the results. The world celebrates visible success but rarely witnesses the invisible work that created it. Those who understand this are not disturbed when they spend seasons outside the spotlight because they know preparation is often more valuable than recognition. Attention itself is neither good nor bad. It is simply a force that must be managed carefully. Used wisely, it can amplify a meaningful message. Used carelessly, it can consume the person seeking it. The difference lies in whether you control your visibility or your visibility begins controlling you. The moment your need to be seen becomes greater than your commitment to your purpose, power starts slipping away without you noticing. The strongest people understand that their value is never determined by how often they appear before others, but by the depth of their character, the clarity of their vision, and the discipline to remain focused even when the world is looking elsewhere. Most people fear disappearing because they believe absence is the same as failure. From an early age, we are taught that success means constantly proving our worth, staying visible, and reminding the world that we exist. We begin to associate silence with weakness and stepping back with surrender. Yet some of the most effective decisions are made far away from the noise of public attention. There is a difference between running away from life and deliberately creating distance to protect your focus. One is driven by fear, while the other is guided by wisdom. Human nature is deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty. People want clear answers, predictable patterns, and immediate explanations. When someone who has always been visible suddenly becomes silent, curiosity begins to grow. Questions replace assumptions. People wonder what happened, what is being planned, or what changes are taking place behind the scenes. The mind naturally fills empty spaces with imagination. In many cases, imagination creates a stronger impression than constant exposure ever could. This is why strategic absence has always carried a unique psychological effect. When every action is announced and every thought is shared, there is very little room left for curiosity. People quickly become familiar with everything about you, and familiarity slowly weakens impact. But when you choose your moments carefully, your presence becomes meaningful rather than routine. Your words gain more attention because they are no longer buried beneath endless conversation. Your actions carry greater significance because they are intentional rather than habitual. There are moments in life when remaining visible costs more than becoming invisible for a while. Every success attracts expectations. Every achievement increases pressure. People begin demanding consistency at a level that leaves little room for growth. They expect you to remain the same person who earned their admiration, even if your purpose requires change. This invisible pressure traps many individuals in old versions of themselves. They become caretakers of an image instead of creators of a better future. Stepping away allows something remarkable to happen. Without the constant influence of public opinion, your own thoughts become louder. You begin noticing ideas that were previously buried beneath endless distractions. You recognize habits that no longer serve your goals. You discover which relationships nourish your growth and which ones quietly drain your energy. Distance creates clarity because it removes the emotional fog produced by constant interaction. Many people mistake activity for productivity. They stay busy answering messages, attending events, reacting to criticism, and defending every decision. Their schedule is full, but their progress is small. They confuse movement with direction. Strategic withdrawal interrupts this cycle. It creates space to ask difficult questions that are impossible to hear in a noisy environment. Are you moving toward your purpose? Or are you simply responding to everyone else's expectations? Are your daily actions building the future you desire, or are they maintaining an image that no longer represents who you are becoming? Silence also changes the balance of power in relationships. something. When someone constantly explains themselves, they give others endless opportunities to judge, criticize, or manipulate them. Every explanation invites another question. Every defense encourages another accusation. Some people are not searching for understanding. Something. They are searching for control. The moment you realize this, you understand that not every conversation deserves your participation. Sometimes the strongest response is refusing to fuel unnecessary conflict. This does not mean becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. It means developing the discipline to recognize which situations deserve your attention and which ones exist only to distract you. Energy is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Unlike money, it cannot simply be earned back after it is wasted. Every emotional argument, every pointless rivalry, and every attempt to satisfy impossible expectations consumes energy that could have been invested in your own growth. Strategic absence also protects unfinished dreams. Not every vision should be shared while it is still fragile. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It develops quietly beneath the surface before anyone witnesses its strength. In the same way, your ideas often need time to mature without the pressure of outside opinions. When people announce every ambition too early, they expose themselves to doubt, criticism, and unnecessary pressure before they have built the resilience needed to continue. The strongest transformations usually happen in private. New skills are learned when no one is applauding. Better habits are formed without recognition. Character is strengthened through ordinary moments that never become headlines. Society celebrates the final achievement, but rarely notices the countless invisible hours that made it possible. Those invisible hours are where confidence is truly built. Confidence created through preparation lasts far longer than confidence borrowed from applause. Another reason powerful people sometimes disappear is to escape the trap of reacting instead of creating. Modern life encourages immediate responses. Every notification demands attention. Every opinion seems to require a reply. Over time, this constant reaction slowly takes control of your life. Instead of deciding what deserves your focus, you allow the outside world to make that decision for you. Strategic withdrawal breaks this pattern. It restores your ability to choose your priorities instead of allowing circumstances to choose them on your behalf. There is also strength in allowing others to underestimate you. When people believe they know exactly what you are doing at every moment, they become comfortable. They assume your future will look exactly like your past. But when you quietly disappear to learn, improve, and prepare, you create room for unexpected growth. By the time others notice your progress, the work has already been completed. They see the result without ever witnessing the discipline that produced it. The fear of disappearing often comes from a deeper fear of being forgotten. Yet lasting influence has never depended on constant visibility. It has always depended on lasting value. People remember those who create meaningful change, not those who simply remain in front of them every day. Temporary attention fades quickly, but genuine substance continues speaking long after the noise has disappeared. Choosing strategic absence requires patience because results are rarely immediate. There will be moments when you wonder whether stepping back was the right decision. There will be times when others misunderstand your silence or mistake your distance for weakness. Not everyone will understand why you stopped seeking approval or why you no longer participate in every conversation. That misunderstanding is often the price of protecting your focus. While others continue chasing attention, you gain something far more valuable: the freedom to think clearly, act deliberately, and build your future without becoming dependent on constant recognition from the outside world. The modern world has convinced many people that success is built in public. Every achievement is expected to be shared, every milestone announced, and every ambition displayed before it has even taken shape. We have become so accustomed to constant exposure that solitude feels uncomfortable. Silence is mistaken for loneliness, something. And time spent alone is often viewed as wasted time. Yet the greatest transformations rarely happen in crowded rooms. They begin in moments when no one is watching, when the noise fades, and a person is finally left alone with their own thoughts. Something. There is a profound difference between isolation that is forced upon someone and solitude that is chosen with purpose. One creates bitterness because it is experienced as rejection. The other creates clarity because it is embraced as an opportunity for growth. Something. Powerful people understand this distinction. They do not withdraw because they hate the world or fear challenges. They step away because they know that continuous exposure slowly weakens the mind. Every conversation, every opinion, something. And every demand competes for attention until there is little room left for original thinking. A mind that is constantly occupied with the expectations of others eventually loses its own direction. It begins reacting instead of creating something. It waits for approval before making decisions. It measures progress through applause rather than through personal growth. Over time, this dependence on outside validation becomes invisible, yet it quietly controls every choice. Something. The individual may appear successful on the surface while feeling increasingly disconnected from their true purpose. Isolation interrupts this pattern. It creates space where distractions lose their influence and honesty becomes unavoidable. Without constant noise, something. Uncomfortable questions begin to surface. Are you living according to your own values, or have you been shaped by the expectations of everyone around you? Are your goals truly yours, or have they been borrowed from society's definition of success? Something. These questions are difficult because they expose illusions that are easy to ignore in a busy life. Many people avoid being alone because silence removes every distraction that keeps them from confronting themselves. When there are no conversations to hide behind, something, no entertainment to numb the mind, and no audience to impress, a person meets their own fears directly. In that quiet space, insecurities become visible, weaknesses become impossible to deny, and habits reveal their true cost. This experience can be uncomfortable, something, but it is also where meaningful change begins. A person cannot improve what they refuse to acknowledge. The strongest individuals understand that rebuilding themselves requires periods of reflection. Just as an athlete cannot perform every hour without rest, something, the mind cannot continue making wise decisions without moments of recovery. Constant pressure eventually clouds judgment. Fatigue disguises itself as confidence. Impulsive decisions begin replacing thoughtful ones. Something. Stepping away is not a sign of weakness, but a recognition that sustained excellence depends on preserving mental clarity. Isolation also strengthens independence. When you spend time away from constant influence, something, your confidence gradually shifts from external approval to internal conviction. Decisions become less dependent on whether they will impress others and more focused on whether they align with your principles. This change is subtle but powerful. Something. Instead of asking what people will think, you begin asking what is right. Instead of seeking permission to move forward, you develop the courage to trust your own judgment. Something. Many breakthroughs appear sudden to the outside world because people only notice the visible result. They see the successful business, the remarkable achievement, or the confident leader without seeing the months or years of quiet preparation that came before it. Something. The invisible season is where real transformation takes place. Skills are refined through repetition that no one applauds. Knowledge is accumulated through countless hours of study that receive no recognition. Something. Character is strengthened through private decisions that will never become public stories. Nature follows the same pattern. The strongest roots develop beneath the surface where no one can admire them. Before a tree rises toward the sky, something, it spends significant time growing downward into the earth. Those hidden roots determine whether it can withstand storms later in life. Human growth works in much the same way. A person who invests in their unseen foundation develops resilience that cannot be shaken easily by criticism, failure, or unexpected challenges. Another gift of isolation is perspective. When you remain inside the same environment every day, it becomes difficult to recognize patterns that are limiting your progress. Familiar routines feel normal even when they are quietly draining your potential. By stepping back, You begin seeing your circumstances from a different angle. Relationships become clearer. Priorities become easier to evaluate. Some opportunities reveal themselves as distractions, while some obstacles reveal themselves as valuable teachers. There is also a creative power that emerges from uninterrupted thought. Modern life rarely allows the mind to wander deeply. Notifications interrupt concentration. Endless information competes for attention. Conversations continue long after they have lost their value. Under these conditions, original ideas struggle to survive. Isolation protects creativity because it gives thoughts the time they need to develop fully. Instead of reacting to endless input, the mind begins connecting ideas in new ways. Solutions appear that would have remained hidden within constant noise. This process requires patience because genuine growth cannot be rushed. There are no shortcuts to wisdom. Every meaningful lesson must be experienced, reflected upon, and understood before it becomes part of someone's character. Many people abandon solitude too quickly because they expect immediate results. They become uncomfortable with the slow pace of inner development. Yet lasting change has always been gradual. Every day spent improving discipline, sharpening judgment, and strengthening emotional resilience becomes another layer of a foundation that will support future success. Isolation also teaches emotional self-control. When there is no audience encouraging emotional reactions, you begin observing your own thoughts with greater objectivity. You notice how quickly anger appears, how fear influences decisions, and how pride distorts perception. Instead of allowing these emotions to dominate your actions, you gradually learn to understand them. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom. A person who understands their own emotions becomes far less vulnerable to manipulation by the emotions of others. Perhaps the greatest lesson solitude offers is the realization that your worth has never depended on being constantly noticed. The world often rewards visibility, but lasting strength is built through qualities that cannot always be seen. Discipline develops quietly. Wisdom grows through reflection. Integrity is strengthened by private choices made when no one is watching. These invisible victories eventually shape every visible success. By the time the world notices the confidence, the leadership, or the influence, the real work has already been completed in moments of silence where there was no applause, no recognition, and no guarantee that anyone would ever understand the value of what was being built. One of the hardest lessons a person will ever learn is that strength is not measured by how long you can hold on. Sometimes strength is measured by knowing exactly when to let go. Yet most people spend years clinging to things that quietly drain them because they confuse endurance with wisdom. They remain loyal to situations that no longer help them grow. They continue fighting battles that were already lost long ago. They protect identities that no longer reflect who they have become. What they call persistence is often fear wearing the mask of determination. Human beings naturally resist change because familiarity creates comfort. Even painful circumstances can begin to feel safe simply because they are predictable. The unknown appears more frightening than the suffering we already understand. This is why so many people remain trapped in unhealthy relationships, exhausting careers, and environments that slowly destroy their confidence. They convince themselves that staying is the responsible choice when, in reality, they have become prisoners of routine. Power begins to disappear the moment your decisions are controlled by fear instead of purpose. Every day you remain attached to something that no longer serves your growth, you surrender a little more of your freedom. At first, the cost seems invisible. You tell yourself that tomorrow will be different. You believe one more effort will solve everything. You hope that people who have repeatedly shown you who they are will suddenly become someone else. Hope is valuable when it inspires action, but it becomes dangerous when it prevents acceptance. Acceptance is often misunderstood. Many believe accepting reality means giving up. In truth, acceptance is the beginning of clear thinking. Until you accept the situation exactly as it is, you continue making decisions based on illusion rather than truth. You waste energy trying to change people who have no desire to change. You invest emotions into outcomes that no longer exist. You build your future around expectations instead of facts. something. There comes a moment when every person must ask a difficult question. Is this struggle helping me become stronger, or is it simply keeping me stuck? Not every challenge deserves unlimited commitment. Some challenges exist to teach you a lesson, something. And once that lesson has been learned, remaining there serves no meaningful purpose. Wisdom is recognizing the difference between obstacles that shape your character and chains that limit your potential, something. Many people are afraid to walk away because they worry about how others will judge them. Society often celebrates those who endure endless hardship, but it rarely asks whether that hardship still has value. Something. There is a difference between perseverance and self-destruction. Perseverance moves you closer to your purpose. Self-destruction keeps you sacrificing your peace for something that has already stopped growing. Relationships reveal this truth with painful clarity. Something. Some people enter your life to encourage your growth, challenge your thinking, and help you become stronger. Others remain only as long as they benefit from your energy, your kindness, or your success. Something. They celebrate you when you are useful but disappear when you need support. They encourage your dependence rather than your independence because your confidence threatens the control they quietly enjoy. Something. Letting go of such relationships often feels heartbreaking because memories make it difficult to accept present reality. Yet memories should never become chains that prevent a healthier future. The same principle applies to outdated versions of yourself. Something. Many people spend years protecting identities they created long ago. They continue introducing themselves through old achievements, old failures, or old labels because those identities have become familiar. Something. Growth requires releasing the person you once were so the person you are becoming has room to emerge. This process is uncomfortable because identity feels deeply personal. Letting go of it can feel like losing part of yourself. In truth, you are not losing yourself. Something. You are removing what no longer fits the life you are trying to build. Power also fades when every disagreement becomes a battle that must be won. Pride convinces people that walking away means admitting defeat. Something. They argue endlessly to protect their ego while sacrificing their peace of mind. They waste precious time proving themselves to individuals who have already decided not to understand them. Every unnecessary conflict steals attention from goals that actually deserve it. Something. Emotional energy is limited. Spending it carelessly leaves little remaining for meaningful work. There is remarkable freedom in realizing that not every opinion deserves your response. Some criticism contains valuable lessons and should be welcomed with humility. Something. Other criticism exists only to provoke an emotional reaction. Learning to distinguish between the two is one of the greatest forms of emotional maturity. Silence is not always avoidance. Something. Sometimes silence is the disciplined refusal to allow another person's negativity to determine the direction of your day. Leaving behind familiar environments often creates loneliness, but loneliness should not be confused with failure. Something. There are seasons in life when distance becomes necessary because growth demands new surroundings. Remaining where you are constantly underestimated slowly changes the way you see yourself. Something. Remaining among people who discourage your ambition gradually weakens your confidence. Sometimes your future begins the moment you stop seeking permission from those committed to your past. Every meaningful transformation requires sacrifice. Something. New opportunities demand space, and space cannot exist while your hands remain full of unnecessary burdens. Imagine trying to climb a mountain while carrying stones collected from every place you have ever visited. At first, each stone seems small enough to keep something. Over time, their combined weight becomes unbearable. The climb becomes slower, exhaustion replaces enthusiasm, and eventually you begin questioning whether the summit is even worth pursuing. The problem is not the mountain. Something. The problem is everything you refuse to leave behind. The courage to let go does not appear suddenly. It develops through repeated acts of honesty. You begin recognizing what drains your energy, what weakens your focus, something, and what keeps you attached to a life that no longer reflects your purpose. Each decision to release unnecessary burdens strengthens your confidence because it proves you are capable of choosing growth over comfort. With every burden you leave behind, something, your vision becomes clearer, your energy becomes stronger, and your direction becomes more certain. You stop measuring your life by what you can keep and begin measuring it by the freedom you create through wise decisions, quiet discipline, and the willingness to release anything that demands your peace while giving nothing meaningful in return. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when the desire to be recognized quietly fades. It does not happen because ambition disappears. It happens because wisdom begins to replace insecurity. In the beginning, many people chase achievement, hoping it will finally convince the world of their worth. They work harder, speak louder, collect titles, and seek applause because they believe validation is the final destination. Yet every accomplishment brings only temporary satisfaction when its true purpose is to fill an emptiness that exists within. The applause ends, the excitement fades, and the hunger for more recognition returns stronger than before. Real power begins when that cycle is broken. It starts when your decisions are no longer controlled by the need to impress strangers or satisfy expectations. You discover that confidence built upon the opinions of others is fragile because those opinions change without warning. The same people who celebrate you today may criticize you tomorrow. Crowds are emotional. They admire success, but they are equally fascinated by failure. If your identity depends entirely on their approval, your peace will always remain beyond your control. Many people never realize how much energy they spend trying to maintain an image. They carefully choose every word, every action, and every appearance to protect a version of themselves they believe others expect. They become actors inside their own lives, constantly performing instead of living honestly. Over time, the performance becomes exhausting. The distance between who they truly are and who they pretend to be grows wider until they no longer recognize themselves without an audience. The strongest people eventually understand that influence gained through authenticity lasts longer than influence gained through performance. Authenticity is not about revealing every private thought or emotion. It is about allowing your actions to remain consistent with your principles, even when doing so earns less attention. It is choosing substance over appearance and character over reputation. Reputation belongs to other people because it exists in their minds. Character belongs to you because it is formed by the choices you make when no one is watching. Self-mastery becomes the foundation of lasting influence. Before anyone can lead others effectively, they must first learn to lead themselves. This requires controlling impulses that once dictated every reaction. Anger no longer decides your words. Fear no longer determines your direction. Pride no longer forces you into unnecessary battles. Instead of reacting immediately, you develop the ability to pause, observe, and choose your response with intention. That small pause becomes one of the greatest sources of personal power because it places your actions under your own control rather than under the control of circumstances. The journey towards self-mastery is rarely dramatic. It is built through ordinary decisions repeated consistently over time. Choosing discipline when comfort feels easier. Remaining patient when frustration demands immediate action. Continuing to improve even when no one notices the effort. These quiet victories rarely receive applause, yet they gradually transform the way a person thinks, behaves, and responds to the world. Every disciplined choice strengthens confidence because it proves that your future is shaped more by your habits than by your emotions. Purpose also changes during this transformation. At first, many goals are driven by comparison. People want success because someone else has it. They seek influence because others seem to possess it. Their direction is constantly influenced by competition rather than conviction. Eventually, they realize comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone wealthier, more famous, or more admired. Building your life around comparison guarantees permanent dissatisfaction because the standard keeps moving. Purpose becomes stronger when it grows from personal values rather than external competition. Instead of asking how to appear successful, you begin asking how to create something meaningful. Instead of chasing recognition, you focus on contribution. The desire to prove yourself gradually disappears because your attention shifts toward improving yourself. Progress becomes internal before it becomes external. Every day is measured not by how many people notice you, but by whether you became wiser, stronger, kinder, or more disciplined than you were yesterday. There is remarkable freedom in reaching a point where silence no longer feels threatening. You no longer need to explain every decision. You no longer feel obligated to defend every misunderstanding. something. Some people will never understand your choices because they view life through experiences different from your own. Accepting this reality removes an enormous burden. You stop seeking universal approval and begin respecting your own judgment. The opinions of others become information instead of commands. This kind of confidence often surprises people because it does not announce itself loudly. It is calm rather than dramatic. It listens more than it speaks. It observes before acting. It does not seek unnecessary conflict because it has nothing to prove. Those who possess this confidence recognize that true strength rarely needs to advertise itself. They understand that actions repeated consistently over time communicate more clearly than endless promises or impressive speeches. Many of the world's most respected individuals earned lasting influence not because they demanded attention every day, but because their work created undeniable value. Their consistency became their reputation. Their integrity became their message. Even during seasons when they remained unnoticed, they continued building, learning, and improving. They understood that temporary invisibility did not reduce their worth. It simply provided uninterrupted time to prepare for greater responsibility. One of the greatest signs of maturity is learning to separate your identity from your achievements. Success is something you experience, not something you become. Failure is an event, not a permanent definition of who you are. When identity becomes attached to outcomes alone, every victory creates fear of future loss, and every setback creates unnecessary despair. But when identity is rooted in values such as honesty, discipline, humility, and perseverance, circumstances lose much of their power to disturb your peace. The return from seasons of quiet growth often surprises those who assume nothing was happening. They see the confidence, but not the years of discipline that created it. They admire the wisdom without witnessing the countless mistakes that shaped it. They notice the influence while remaining unaware of the sacrifices made in private. Lasting strength is rarely built in moments of public celebration. It is forged through countless unseen decisions where comfort is exchanged for growth, ego is replaced by humility, distraction gives way to focus, and the desire for constant validation is slowly transformed into the quiet certainty that real power has never depended on being noticed, but on becoming the kind of person whose character continues to speak long after the applause has faded.